Are you a leader in customer success, pre-sales, professional services, support? Do you work behind the scenes and roll up your sleeves to make sure that customers are happy? Renew. Then this is for you. Welcome to the GSD Podcast. Welcome to the GSD Podcast. Getting it done. Services, success, and software. We'll talk with the pros that have been in the trenches, getting service teams off the ground, launching new types of groups to service customers, or running agencies that don't have a product attached to it. For the pros, by the pros. This is the GSD Podcast, and this is your host, Jeff Kushmerek.
And we are good. All right. So thanks for I would call this the back to school version of the podcast. I had to take a few weeks off there with me traveling and people that I was scheduling to chat about some stuff. But in the meantime, while some of that was going on, one of the things that I had always wanted to have happen, which was just a person that I was not connected to just reached out to me and in professional services, and we just started chatting and thought it would be great to have on the podcast. Just for everybody that's listening, if you hear any weird or different dynamic, this is the second version of this that we are recording. Sometimes we have to follow some brand guidelines, and so there's some things that we might not get into exactly and on this one, but we still have a ton of information. I really love what Luiz and his team is doing at Gympass. So let me turn it over, Luiz, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit how you got to where you are.
Perfect, Jeff. Perfect. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Before I talk about the beginning of professional services journey at Gympass, let me introduce myself and tell you a little bit about Gympass. So my whole background was built in IT industry. Yep. And at some point I moved to a large consulting company, BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, where I acquired deep knowledge related to digital topics involving large IT transformations, product management, and so on.
Yeah.
And after this challenging period in consulting, learning a lot and
consulting can be a grind at times.
Exactly. So I think after this challenge period and linking all my previous IT background with new business perspective, I was invited to join Gympass.
Yeah.
And when I heard about the purpose of Gympass, that was founded in 2012, and I understood the business model, my eyes were shining. Yeah. So basically, Gympass is a three-sided marketplace platform that is helping the world find an activity to love, the fitting in activity. And we do that generating value to the three sides of our marketplace. First one is the HR from our clients that will offer an amazing benefit to their employees access a huge number of gyms and activities around the world and strengthen their wellness program. The second one, the gyms, our partners, where we generate new revenue stream and also we deliver other key benefits to them. And the third one, the end user, that will find an activity to love. Yeah. So the HR wins, the gym wins, and the user wins. A karma-free business, as our CPO, Joaquin Torres, often says.
Okay, that's awesome.
But like any other product company that is growing exponentially, was not unusual to find partners and clients requesting for custom solutions. And
absolutely.
Was making sense. However, the competing priorities between the regular work and custom requests were delaying important product deliveries to our entire base. Therefore, we decided to establish a professional services function to deliver this added value custom requests to our partners and clients, securing the product backlog.
Where did you find that the majority of the customer requests were coming from out of that marketplace? Which side of it was?
Mainly from partners and clients. So basically, clients are the companies where we offer to the HR the benefit.
Gotcha.
And the partners are basically the gyms that we are partnering with to build our network.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can totally believe that. When I was at Virgin, that was the people that we sold into were the HR teams as well, and we always needed to build some type of custom portal. And do you have to deal with like the land of eligibility files and things like that?
Exactly. So yeah,
yeah, good
really fun. It is really fun because for in the company side there are two main dimensions: the eligibility management and the payroll integration that are key for any benefits provider, right? And yes, you are totally right. So eligibility is one of the main challenges we face here.
Yeah.
But
because people see what you do and you see Gympass, but suddenly you're dealing with like exactly like social security numbers, and you're dealing with hardcore security pass-throughs and things like that. So yeah.
Exactly. And then there are two main dimensions we can see professional services adding value nowadays. The first one is the implementation of these tailored solutions to meet our partners and clients' expectations. And the second one that is really important is the offloading of product development, also providing them the required feedback from the field to support the product evolution. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. And as you know, and I brought it up the last time we chatted, I have a very strong perspective that the power user of most SaaS-based or whatever, just most product companies is usually the professional services team, because they're using the product the most. They're implementing it, and they need to know how everything works. And if your professional services team is integrated and they're able to pass back into the product and development teams their findings and what people are asking for when you're doing these custom jobs, you can really have a big impact on a company's roadmap.
Exactly. And it's really great that you are saying that, because the operating model we established was focused on technical sales, acting as the voice of customers, so partners and clients, and bringing the custom requests to professional services. Yep. That will basically handle it with two main roles: the professional services manager and the technical leads. And also, once we assess the custom requirements, we engage with a vast partner ecosystem to deliver the solution, therefore gaining scale,
And go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I think another important point to mention is that we defined the architecture boundaries to make sure we could work focused on custom requests that would not impact our product core. As you know, it's really easy to get distracted by a ton of ideas. That we found important to define these boundaries that are basically related to integration. So we work in an API level to deliver the custom solutions.
So it's interesting. So I know you can't customize any of Gympass's code base, but are there limitations to the types of customizations that you're allowed to do, or the types of things that you're allowed to do in professional services? They're like whatever you do, don't build X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to think of an exact example, but I just remembered, like when we were at Brightco, for example, there were certain things where they were like, well, don't build your own ad server, right? Like we don't want to have, get into something that's incredibly custom or too much of a competition to the product or anything like that.
Yes, exactly. So there's a kind of service packages we are building, focusing on integration only and clients and partners technical readiness. But to be really tangible here, let's suppose that a company wants we transform the payroll format to their system, So we do that. So, and another example, some fitness partner that are not able to integrate with us, so we integrate with them through our APIs, our integration landscape, So those are kind of the boundaries that we act on,
Makes sense. Absolutely. So let's talk about a little bit about the packages. I do think that this is something that can really help out a sales team, and it empowers them, because sales people don't traditionally like to bring professional services into the deal. They'll feel that it slows things down. Sometimes it can get super complicated, so they don't want to stumble upon it. And so if I recall from our last conversation, you had created some packages that the salespeople can easily speak to, and if they then need to get brought into the conversation, somebody like yourself can get brought in.
Exactly. So what is really great that we've done before is that we established a technical sales function at Gympass to make sure that all product technical aspects could be handled at their level. So they basically enable the sales teams to deliver our product to the market in a technical perspective. But furthermore, when we establish the professional service that's working really close to technical sales, we start to build this kind of service package, Right. And to avoid problems, we make sure that we followed a straightforward go-to-market approach. And in the beginning of any custom project, we create a comprehensive statement of work encompassing a user acceptance test strategy that secure us in terms of the development of what is required and calibrate all stakeholders' expectations. So if we are talking about doing an integration with a payroll system, we have this comprehensive go-to-market approach since the beginning of the engagement till the delivery of the solution, and the tracking, the satisfaction from our clients and partners.
Yeah, can you get a little bit more into that? And the first time we talked about it, I was jumping up and down because this was it blew me away how you guys were able to pull out this sort of UAT from the beginning of a custom project, and it's a little forward thinking, and I really love it. So if you can get a little bit more into this, but it just puts customer success right at the forefront, and I just love the concept.
Sure. The UAT strategy was key for us in the beginning because at the beginning of each project, what we try to do is to sit with all the stakeholders and we build together the UAT that is part of the statement of work. And this UAT is really journey driven. So when we establish that, we say, okay, for the client, what it means to validate that, to accept that feature, or to accept this transformation rule in the file, this kind of stuff. For Gympass, what this means, what we need to validate, what we need to accept to make sure that what we are delivering is meeting all stakeholders' expectations, So this was a key piece for us, and it's being a key piece for us because since the beginning, we calibrate all stakeholders' expectations of what we will deliver and what they need to accept. And as they need to accept something, they put the requirements, they establish, this is the way that I will accept that. So this helps a lot the work and the development of the custom solutions for sure.
Does it ever, sorry, we both have had a lot of consulting, so you'll know where I'm getting on this one. Has the UAT criteria ever changed suddenly midway through the project and you have to remind them that this is what they signed up for?
Yeah, sometimes, and this is funny because, as you know, every time this happens, depending on the situation. But I think this is one thing that where UAT brings value, because in the end, as we agreed that before, if you have some change, no problem, we will react to change. But it's important to have this well established since the beginning. So when someone says, "Oh, maybe I misunderstood," I was expecting that. No problem, we can change. But remember that we designed that in the beginning, Right. So it's more fair in terms of we do the changes, required.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing here is great, and what that is you've got a higher sense of empathy that's going throughout your organization, because there's plenty of professional services type organizations that are like, aha, we've got you now. Like it says right here in the contract on line 24.7 that you needed X, and you're asking, but I mean, things change, right? People's maybe might have misunderstood something, or what I saw a lot when I was working on a lot of e-commerce websites is that you're halfway through a project, and requirements change, or their competitor just came out with something that is the exact same thing, and they need to now leapfrog the competitor. And software, it just changes all the time, and it sounds like you've got a nice system in place for documenting and requiring, which enables you to have those sort of scope change conversations. But then it's not like you're holding it against them, and it's going to cause lots of problems and negotiations and everything.
And Jeff, I think in the end, what we are trying to do is to reduce the complexity of the project, because in the end, software is complex.
Yeah.
It's not for sure that is not a rock science every time, but it's complex. And what we are trying to do with these techniques, for example, the UAT, is to try to reduce this complexity to make sure that we have a more clear path ahead in order to implement the solution, So I like this linking in terms of using the right techniques to reduce complexity as we work in a project-driven mindset instead of product-driven mindset,
Right. Well, and there's an important thing here, and I might have used harsher language the first time when I brought it up, but you don't want to mess with the software renewal or satisfaction just because you want to be, the project manager of the year with the less change amounts and things like that, right? So a lot of times you can get into these conversations, but I'm sorry, if you're in professional services for a software company, your job is to make sure that the customer loves the implementation that you did, and they'll have the high NPS and the great feeling about your company as a whole, so that when renewal time happens, they're not going to be like, oh, you guys screwed us during implementation, and or that was just a bad experience, and it's forever a bad taste in their mouth or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, I think the main challenge is to keep focus on bringing the best experience for our entire ecosystem, the clients, partners, and the users. And to track that, I think what is really important is to make sure that all the stakeholders are working towards the same goal. That's right. In the end is the successful implementation of our product. So in the end, what we are doing is to offering a really cool benefit to the company's employees. We are generating flow to the gyms, and also we are allowing the users to find an activity to love. So if you take a look into the ecosystem and we make sure that everyone is satisfied, so we can see that professional services is enabling that, because in the end, when a company acquires Gympass, they are acquiring the product, not the project from professional services only, Exactly. So we are only a key piece of their satisfaction. And this is really, really challenging if you think, because if I don't think with this ecosystem mindset, this can be backfire for me. I won't think about, okay, I just need to deliver this project. And in the end, we are pushing to avoid this mindset here, Jeff?
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's the key to it all. And I tell people if they don't like that sometimes, then perhaps they need to go work for either a product development group, or they need to perhaps just go into normal consulting, like sort of like what I do now and what you did at BCG, which is sort of, you tell us what to build and we'll go build it. Because otherwise you work for a product company, and that's the most important thing, is to ensure that satisfaction. So
exactly.
Sure. How long are your sort of classic, let's go for your packaged, sort of like, what we talked about, the salespeople can hand out a data sheet and say, here it is. So you've got your standard sort of regular packages, and then sort of a custom implementation, if there's any sort of standard time for those.
Yeah, so it's important to talk a little bit about the operating model again, because in the end, in the whole cycle that we have, is basically technical sales engaging with the customers that are our partners and clients. And then when they bring the demand to us, I think in average we have 1 quarter project, so this is how long it takes, to implement a custom solution. And I think more than that, we need to stop and think if we are not building more one feature to the product. that is not our role,
Right,
and
right.
this is important to think about, because we established these architecture boundaries to make sure that we will not create what the product should create. In the end, we are only an enabler to the product in a way that we can customize integration solutions to the clients and partners, So generally is quick projects, should be.
How many sort of concurrent projects are going on in your department, sort of in general at a time? Or do you have sort of, I've seen it be like, no, we've got 3, and then I've seen like we've got 400. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. So one thing that we are trying to deal with is with this amount of demands that are coming. So sometimes I have 10 projects in parallel. Nowadays we have 3 to 4, but as we define it, an operating model where we can leverage 30 parties, so partners from a huge ecosystem of software development firms and others, this is easier to escalate, So in the end, if I have 10 or 20 projects going on, I just need to make sure that I have a professional services manager in place that is an in-house resource and a technical lead that will make sure we are following our technical principles.
Yep.
And in the end, they will leverage the 30 parties, So what we are trying to do is to accrediting 30 parties that will be able to work with us in a scalable way,
Right. What, I'm curious, what, either meetings or software or tracking, what do you have, how do you know sort of on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis that these projects are, going as planned, especially since you've got, some partners in the mix as well, dashboards, those types of things?
Yeah, so we have a lot of tools to make sure we are tracking all the projects or all the initiatives. But I think part of the risk in terms of planning, we transfer to these partners, that are working close with us. So basically what we need to make sure is that we have at least a really clear timeline calibrated with all stakeholders, the UAT well designed, and the other aspects of the statement of work, to avoid any problem during the project,
Right.
And for sure that we try to calibrate the time of implementation. As we just talked, if we are going further with time, maybe we need to stop and think if we are going to the right direction, and if we are not creating more one Frankenstein in our product.
Yeah, exactly. It happens to everybody. I can think of one off the top of my head when you said like the quarter, and if it's longer than that. And I remembered like a 1.5 long project for something, but that was, sometimes you sell into a company and then they have many companies underneath them, and you try and create this sort of standardized framework that everybody's going to kind of come on to, and then you can get into those situations. But you're right. When I look at it now, I laugh. I'm like, yeah, why did we spend 1.5 years on that? They're like, it should have been 3 months tops. So but it happens. So.
Yeah, and I think what is great, Jeff, in the end, is that we have outstanding people here, and they are always framing the problem in a way that we can deliver better to our clients and partners, So I think as everyone here has a deep knowledge on not only in technology, but in product management, digital topics, and even business, we can frame in a way that we are always evolving, because it's a recent born area,
Yeah.
So we need to react fast and evolve fast,
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of reacting and fast, but I know last time we chatted, I said, so what's the current initiative that you're working on to help sort of push things forward? So do you mind sort of going through sort of that right now?
Sure, for sure. I think the main challenge that will generate the main initiatives is to keep focus with a straightforward approach to deliver the tailored solutions. So we are really focused on that. As I said, it's easier to get distracted because we are growing exponentially. So what we are trying to do is to make focus on the integration initiatives for our partners and for our clients. And apart from that, finding the right talents is a key piece for us. So for whom that is listening. We have an exciting journey ahead, as I said, and it's only the beginning. And feel free to check our job opportunities. This is really
That's awesome. No, that's great. I mean, absolutely. I'm going to make sure I post those links when I update the podcast and put it up. So, and I am trying to pull these in just to be a little tighter and shorter. So I appreciate getting down to business and answering a lot of these questions. So that's awesome. So, any sort of last thoughts or things that you wanted to sort of highlight or go over?
No, I think that's it, Jeff. Maybe I think is the key point here is that when I see all these product companies, they are needing, to adapt themselves in a way that they create professional services function as an enablement to scale fast, in a way that they will not impact their product core. We are doing that. We are being successfully with this approach. And more important, we are reacting fast to changes that are coming. So I think this is the final thought. I think this is an amazing way to think about professional services enabling these product companies that are coming to our market.
That's great. And I can just tell, from our conversations, that, even if you move on, somewhere else in 5 years or whatever happens to be, you're always going to look back at this experience and be very proud of sort of what you've put together. So it's great stuff. So if you don't mind, I'd love to set an appointment. We don't have to put the actual calendar appointment together now, but I'd love to chat in 6 months and to see sort of where you guys are at now, or maybe bring you onto a panel where a bunch of leaders get together and talk about some best practices as well too.
Amazing, Jeff. I'm looking forward for it for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're getting to the end of the day on a Friday, so I appreciate this being hopefully your last sort of work-related thing, and you get to enjoy a nice weekend down there.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. For you too.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm going to stop recording. I'll just say one last thing, and so let me just hit that button now. Thank you.
Amazing.